X-Men, Days of Future Past, vloggity vlog, handheld, blah, subscribe. No. Just finished watching X-Men Days of Future Past. It was good. It was really good. It was really good. I really liked it. It does sort of unwrite the entire trilogy, though, of the X-Men movies. But maybe that's what they wanted to do. Try and give it a new, fresh start. Okay, so, as we all know, the Days of Future Past is set in the future where Sentinel program is set up and Sentinels go out and capture and kill all mutants, but eventually turn on humans as well because they identify that the mutant gene exists in all of us in our own way. And so Xavier makes a plan to try and time travel back in time to try and stop the whole Sentinel program from ever happening. And this is sort of their last attempt, because if they're not successful, they will all die, because they have no place else to run. And I like how they established, like, they've been hopping back and forth, kind of giving themselves a few days or so of survival. You know, traveling back in time and warning the survivors so that they can pick up and move on to a new place before the Sentinels dive in. And it's pretty horrific, because the way... I mean, these Sentinels... I like these designs of the Sentinels. They're quite unique. And, it did sound like a really ridiculous idea that the Sentinels, they get their abilities from having Mystique's DNA, where they're able to adapt and use the mutants' own powers and abilities against them, or even opposing powers against them, you know, like fire against ice and ice against fire, vice versa, and how they're seemingly indestructible. And yeah, and you see some mutants die pretty brutally. Like, they're just massacred. Like, you have a scene where Colossus, in full metal, gets ripped in half by 2 Sentinels. It's pretty insane. And, I like the movie. What ends up happening is that Logan decides that he's the only one who could physically survive the trip, because the brain would just be ripped apart in trying to do this. And because he can heal rapidly, so he goes back in time, back to 1973, where Xavier's kind of given up. Magneto's in jail for seemingly trying to kill the president. He says he wasn't trying to kill him, was actually trying to save him. And hook up with a few other people, rehook up with Beast, and to try and find Mystique, because she tries to kill Trask, or she goes on a mission to kill Trask. She initially is successful, but she's taken captive and experimented on and dissected, and they use her DNA in order to make the Sentinels. So they have to stop her from being captured and stop her from killing Trask, because that just makes the government decide, okay, we need to go through with the whole Sentinel program. It is a bit, well, I was going to say, after seeing First Class, it doesn't kind of make so much sense as to why Xavier would give up. You know, because at the end of First Class, you know, he was still, you know, he still had hope. You know, but they introduced the idea that when Vietnam happened, the draft happened, and so all of his students were drafted, and a lot of them went overseas to fight the war over in Vietnam. And obviously a lot of them, well, a lot of them probably got killed in the conflict, but it was also the fact that Trask was experimenting on other mutants. And a lot of those mutants were the same ones probably from Xavier's school. Hence the reason why Mystique has such a deep-seated hatred for him. She's seen what he's done to them, how he's experimented on them, with virtually no regard for them. That's kind of my problem with Trask, too. He's not really a character. He's just a straightforward... And he's not really even a straightforward villain. He's, you know, it's, you know, I am a scientist... but I find the mutants fascinating, blah, 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 blah. You know, I think that through them, you know, we can find a new peace, and with them, you know, my Sentinels. And it's just kind of ridiculous, because you're chopping up these people, and you're dissecting them. They're, you know, he just has absolutely no regard for them. And at the end of it, what happens to Trask after Magneto makes this grandstand? That this all takes place in the past. Xavier, it's actually shown that Xavier throws his powers away, and not only can he walk again, because they say that for some reason I forget what the explanation was, but they invented, Hank, I guess, Beast, invented this serum that would stop Charles's powers, but give him his ability to be able to walk again. You know, because in the previous movie he got shot in the spine, and so that was how he lost his legs. And... you know, and so that's how he loses his powers, is through the serum. So he can't read minds, and he can't control people anymore. And so, Trask sets up these pre-made Sentinels. These are the first generation model, to show off to the president after the first attempt on Trask's life, and she fails. Because... everybody else interferes and such. And Magneto actually tries to kill her because, you know, he thinks that, well, by killing her, that would be the best thing to do, you know, to stop Trask from ever getting his hands on her. And eventually this leads to Magneto makes this plan where, while Trask is having the prototypes shipped so that Nixon can demonstrate that yes, there is a threat out there, but we are prepared, and we can defend our own people with this new weapon, with the Sentinel program. Magneto manipulates a railing system into the Sentinels themselves, which then gives him the ability to... well, yeah, well, he can control them, because now there's metal, and there's metal inside their systems, so now he can control them. And so he lures a giant football stadium to cover and surround the White House area, and he's going to execute the president and everyone. Mystique and Xavier stop him. Well, Mystique stops him by pretending to be the president to sacrifice her life so that she can spare everyone and stop Magneto, and stops him, and Xavier convinces her to not kill Trask, to show them that we can be better. And she takes that choice and walks away. And what happens? Well, Trask, it's written in the newspaper that he's arrested for selling government secrets. And yeah, he was trying to sell the Sentinel program to other nations. Hell, he tried to sell it to the North Koreans. Or to the Vietnamese. I'm sorry, I'm not very good with cultures. At first he tried to sell it to Congress, but they weren't sure about it. And then, when the whole attempt and everything, he then tries to sell it to the president. That's where the prototypes come in. And so how does it end? He goes to jail for selling secrets, apparently. It's like, I thought there would have been more to it. You know, that maybe he would learn something from it and, you know, and shut down the program or something, but apparently not. And so, and then I guess we get a new history as well, because future Logan wakes up in the future reset where there was no war, there were no Sentinels, and everybody is back. Scott and Jean and Xavier, Beast is there, Rogue, Bobby, everybody, Storm. And at the end, because Magneto, while during the whole fight, he's, you know, having the Sentinels fight Beast and Wolverine. And while Wolverine is in the past, he doesn't have his adamantium claws anymore. He just has the shitty bone claws. And so Magneto inserts a bunch of metal rebar through Logan's system and then tosses him up in the air, and he just happens to land out in the ocean, I think, and he drowns. And we come back to him at the end of the movie after, you know, everything's been secure and he wakes up in the future. He's telling Xavier what's the last thing he remembers, and he remembers drowning. And he's rescued by a police unit who brings him up, and he's still alive. It's just that his future self is no longer in his head. And Stryker is there, and Stryker's been all throughout the movie. He's been sort of Trask's right-hand man. And the police say to Stryker, "Oh, what do you want to do with this one?" And he says, "Oh, don't worry, I'll take him." And then his eyes flash yellow to indicate that, oh, that's Mystique. And so it sort of raises a question of, okay, well, what's going to happen now? I mean, if he's not taken by Stryker and experimented on and given his adamantium claws, you know, but also it kind of resets the whole X-Men trilogy as well. You know, because we now have the new future where Jean and Scott are still there and Xavier is still there and everything. But now we also have this new reset past. So I'm just kind of curious as to know what's going to happen next. Overall, I thought the movie was really good. A lot of the acting was good. A lot of the special effects were great. The Sentinels looked really good. I did enjoy this a lot more than I did First Class. I wonder if I should rewatch First Class. I mean, I didn't think First Class was terrible. I did have initial cast problems, you know, because this was supposed to be the first incarnation of the X-Men, and my first immediate thought was, Mystique was never a fucking X-Man, Havoc was never a first X-Man, you know, and, you know, just a lot of crap like that really bothered me. There were a lot of things about it that I did like. Like, I loved a lot of the moments between Xavier and Eric, between them, you know, a lot of those great character moments that you had. And Kevin Bacon was great as the villain. He was great. Alright, well, this has gone on a little bit too long. Those are my thoughts on X-Men Days of Future Past. It was good. It was good. I really liked it. So until then, I'll see you guys next time. I do wonder what they plan on doing next for the X-Men series. So until then, see ya.